Okay, so a lot of people have been, celebrating Charlie Kirk's death on the left. A lot of white liberals and black liberals. That's primarily who I'm seeing. A lot of effeminate males. A lot of radical feminist females with bull rings in their nose, purple hair, blue hair. We know who they are, the usual suspects. And regardless of whether you like Charlie Kirk or not, I think it's disgusting and it is absolutely distasteful to celebrate the death of a man who didn't deserve to die. He did nothing to deserve to lose his life that day. It hasn't even been a full week yet since his assassination. Today is Monday. And, Wednesday will make a full week. But a lot of black liberals believe that Charlie Kirk was a racist. And somebody compiled a list of 20 different statements that he made over the years. And they said these are all racist statements. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, go over each one of those 20 statements expeditiously as possible. I'm not going to make this video too long because I got to go to work and I got to get my oil changed. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show some receipts. I'm going to give you real data. And I'm going to give you a few actual live video examples to substantiate or debunk what Charlie Kirk stated in these 20 different claims that somebody compiled together and put them on X. So without further ado, I'm going to put the list of the 20 so-called racist statements that he made, and I'm going to give accurate information to either confirm, aka corroborate, or deny or debunk those claims that he made. So here we go. Okay, so this is the list that somebody put together on X. The first claim or statement they said was racist. Prowling blacks go around for fun to target white people. That's a fact. That is not exactly true. Here's what he's basically saying, that black folks on the prowl, I guess in crime infested areas, they're looking for white people to go victimize. And to be honest with you, black criminals that are looking for somebody to victimize, they don't care what color the person is. And truth be told, we all know that the overwhelming majority of the time when black criminals victimize somebody, the overwhelming majority of the time they're victimizing other black people. And that's simply because most black people live amongst black people. That's a fact. That's not true what Charlie Kirk stated for point number one. I don't have any video clips to kind of, confirm or deny that statement, but the facts are what they are. Most victims of black criminality are black people. That's a fact that cannot be denied. And I don't believe it. And most people know that criminals most of the time aren't seeking to victimize a person because they're of a certain race. If somebody want to make some money or steal something, if somebody want to steal a car, if somebody want to rob you, if somebody want to break into your home, they're not concerned about what race you are. They're just simply like, hey, I'm trying to hit me a lick. So that first point, I wouldn't call it racist. I would just call it inaccurate. Point number two, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. And this one, I'm going to show you a couple of receipts. I've got a video clip to kind of go over that one, and we'll break it down a little bit further.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
Okay, now if you just heard him say that, just that clip of him saying, if I see a black pilot, I hope he's qualified, it does sound racist. But if you don't know the proper context, that's why it's important to watch these clips in their entirety. This little exchange he was having with that, I don't know the other guy's name, but this was on his show. And it was basically in response to news about DEI in the aviation industry. And basically, United Airlines, one of the biggest airlines in the country, said they wanted to increase their number of black pilots. Over 5,000 new pilots by 2030 is what you can find on Google, just a quick Google search. And it says that they wanted to make at least half of them women or people of color. So, just to kind of reiterate the point, on the right, most of us don't agree with DEI. We believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a bad route to take because it pushes people in certain positions that may or may not be qualified. Now, the aviation industry is a very, very, very niche industry, especially when you're talking about commercial pilots. I'm pretty sure the overwhelming majority of people that are listening to this video have been on an airplane before. I've been on more airplanes than I can count. I like flying because it's convenient, but I don't love it because it's kind of scary sometimes when you go through turbulence, and your chances of surviving an airline crash are slim to none when you're hundreds and thousands of feet in the air. I mean, most planes crash on takeoff or landing. That's a fact. The overwhelming majority of the time you're in an airplane, you're 30 something thousand feet above the earth. And if an experienced pilot, they don't really have to do a whole lot of work outside of landing and taking off because the plane is on what's called autopilot. Of course, they got to maneuver around storms and follow air traffic control. It's a very sophisticated situation when it comes to flying a commercial jumbo jet like a 737 or a Airbus A320, A321, whatever plane you're on. I love aviation. I studied it for a while. That's why I'm able to talk about it like this. But it is a mostly white male industry. It's not easy to become a commercial pilot. The training is rigorous. 4% basically of commercial pilots in the U.S. are black. Less than 1% are black women. And I think white men make up around 90% of the overall fleet of pilots for commercial airlines in the country. And there are around 45 to 47,000 commercial flights per day in the U.S. alone, which is roughly half of the global, between 93 and 100,000 per day. So it's a lot of big jets in the air. I think that the number's around 5,000 in the air at any given time across the country. And there's no room for error when you're 30 plus thousand feet in the air. That's like several miles high. And I think that most white men that fly these planes are very qualified. All of them are qualified. You can't just get in a jumbo jet and fly it. All pilots have to be qualified. So I think that the disparity is the way it is as far as the number of white men that are pilots versus other demographics is because it's a very niche industry. It's expensive to become a pilot. The training is not cheap. It's just not something that a lot of minorities are able to just jump into like that. Asians are lower than black people in representation, and so are Hispanics. So black people actually make up a greater share of airline pilots outside of the white race. So black folks are number 2, even though we're number 3 demographically. It's more Hispanics in America than black people, but black people make up more pilots than Hispanics. So was that statement racist? If you listen to it out of context, it certainly does sound racist. But if you listen to the whole exchange, which I didn't play the whole exchange, it's a lot longer than that, but it was just his response to United Airlines coming out saying they wanted to make their fleet of pilots more diverse. And in my opinion, we should not be aiming to make an industry more diverse artificially. We should be hiring the best people for the job. And if more black people want to become pilots, that's awesome. Black people are just as capable of being pilots as white people. I've flown on a plane with a black pilot. I didn't shake his hand or anything, but I saw him getting in the cockpit. It was a middle-aged black guy, probably in his 40s or 50s. Regular-looking black man. I don't think I've ever been on a plane that a black female was flying, but I don't care who's flying the plane. I don't care if they black, white, green, yellow, or purple. Can you get me to my destination in one piece, right? That's all I care about is them doing their job and doing it well. So the statement itself, it does sound racist if it's not taken in the proper context. Moving along. Number 3, George Floyd was a scumbag. Okay, now this is a very subjective statement. Some people may call him a scumbag. Some people may not. In my opinion, I don't think he was far off from that. I don't think George Floyd was a good human being. You probably could make the claim that he was a scumbag because of some of the stuff that George Floyd had done in his past. Did George Floyd deserve to die that day? No, he did not. Many people believe he died of a drug overdose. Many people believe he died because of Derek Chauvin putting his knee on his neck for almost 9 minutes. I'm not here to really talk about his cause of death. I'm just going to go over some of his previous criminal arrests and why the claim that George Floyd was a scumbag could probably very well be an accurate statement. So if you go on Google and just type in George Floyd's arrest history, it'll pop right up. George Floyd was a native of Houston, Texas, and he had several different arrests. A lot of them were drug related. 1997, drug possession of a controlled substance, cocaine, convicted. He was a crackhead, y'all. That's just what it was. He served a little bit of time in jail for that, but not a whole lot. Getting caught with a little bit of cocaine or crack is not going to get you sent to prison. 1998, theft with a firearm. It says it involved a firearm, but it was not armed robbery. He was convicted. He served 10 months in Harris County Jail. Harris County, of course, is Houston's county. He was arrested again in 2002 for possession of a controlled substance, cocaine. And I'm pretty sure it was crack. But irrespective of which form of cocaine it was, George Floyd had a drug problem. That's just what it was. Are you a bad person because you have a drug problem? No. Having a drug problem does not make you a bad person. It just means you need to get some help and you need to get off the dope. And once again, 2005, drug possession. This is the one where I can kind of agree with Charlie Kirk that he was a scumbag because he did a aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon. And this is the one that was kind of controversial because some people say he robbed a pregnant woman at gunpoint. Some people said he put a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach. Now, a lot of fact-checking websites said that wasn't exactly true because the woman was not pregnant at the time. But he did serve 5 years in prison, and he was let out on parole in 2013. If you allow your drug habit to cause you to harm somebody, you're trash. You're a scumbag. Being a drug addict is one thing. You're hurting yourself. But when you start hurting other people, you're a scumbag. I do agree with Charlie Kirk that George Floyd was a scumbag because he physically robbed somebody. He put a gun to a woman's stomach. And I do believe that it was a black woman that he did this to. So he actually hurt another human being that looked like him because of his drug addiction. So I would say that statement wasn't racist at all. Anybody can be a scumbag. And I would put George Floyd in that category. And the fact that a lot of black people, very low brain power black people only do this. But the not so smart black people kind of made George Floyd as some, figure that should be celebrated and like he was some martyr or something for, civil rights or something crazy like that. And I don't believe that George Floyd should have been lionized and uplifted the way that he was uplifted. But moving right along. All right, so number 4, MLK, Martin Luther King, just a man, a very flawed one at that. A mythological anti-racist creation of the 1960s. Now, this one is also subjective. I would say Martin Luther King was more than just a man. He was one of the most prevalent American men in American history. That's a little bit of a stretch to say he was just a man. There's nothing racist about that statement, but depending on who you ask, some people have great remarks of Martin Luther King. Some people have not so great remarks about Martin Luther King. As I've gotten older and I've studied Dr. King a lot more, I'm not as fond of him as I used to be. We were taught growing up that Martin Luther King was this great leader and he was assassinated by the white man, which is true. White man did kill him. Some problems I had with Martin Luther King was he was definitely a communist. I don't support communism at all. A lot of black people don't know enough about communism, in my opinion. A lot of Americans, period, for that matter. And the guy pictured on your screen right now was a communist. His name was Bayard Rustin. He was an openly gay man. And he was one of Martin Luther King's most influential mentors. He actually brought Martin Luther King under his wing and exposed him to the world of communism. That's a fact. You can look it up yourself. Bayard, B-A-Y-A-R-D, Rustin, R-U-S-T-I-N, Bayard Rustin. Look him up. Martin Luther King, like I said, he allegedly had multiple affairs, and that's significant because he was supposed to be a minister. Some people even say he participated in orgies. Martin Luther King's sexual deviancy is well known. You can go look up the Martin Luther King files through the FBI. The FBI had all kind of dirt on Martin Luther King with his philandering ways. None of us are perfect. I'm not excusing Martin Luther King for his adultery, but he had many affairs on Coretta Scott King. That's just a fact. And as far as the whole I have a dream thing, judge me by the content of my character, not the color of my skin. I do agree that we should be judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. I think any reasonable person can believe that. Martin Luther King later stated that he integrated his people into a burning building. You know, I don't like the whole concept of forcing people to integrate. I believe that the people that wanted it should have been allowed to do it. But to have the government to come in and force it, that was a bit of a problem. And it caused a lot of tension that otherwise would not have been there. The whole busing situation, you know, why as a black person would you want to go force some white people to let you in their restaurant and serve you food so they can spit and piss and blow snot in it and all kind of crap like that? Like, if a person doesn't want me to come into their business, if a person doesn't want my money, I'm going to turn my black behind around so fast and walk up out of there, bro. Like, I didn't agree with that part of Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm more of a Malcolm X type of guy, minus the racism against white people. I'm not a racist. As a God-fearing man, I don't hate anybody because of the color of their skin. But not a huge fan of Dr. Martin Luther King as I used to be when I was young and I didn't know any better. We were taught to idolize him. But as you get older and do research, you learn things that you didn't learn before. And you will gain a different perspective. So, again, not a racist statement at all. It's okay to criticize black people as a white person. Just because a white person says something about you that you don't like does not make them racist. Okay, number 5. The Great Replacement is not a theory, it's a reality. In a lot of white male-dominated spaces, there's this chatter about the Great Replacement, how you have a lot of Western nations, including America, that have been flooded with a lot of migrants. In America, a lot of our migrants come from south of the border. They happen to be mostly Hispanic for obvious reasons. Over in the Western world, across the pond, though, when you go to like Europe, Italy, Spain, France, Germany, the UK, right? A lot of them are actually Muslim. They come from North Africa and the Middle East. And the Great Replacement situation, it actually is a real thing. There's nothing racist about that statement. And we can get into all the nuts and bolts and all the minutiae about the Great Replacement if you want to on a later video. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to go deep into it. But yes, those countries that I just named, including the United States of America, have been flooded with migrants from places all around the third world. And the reason why it's happening is subjective. You can get a different response from different people depending on who you ask. In America, it's for 2 reasons. Number 1, cheap labor. And number 2, the white and black birth rates have plummeted. So the 2 people that used to be the only 2 major demographics here, like as early as the 1980s, it was mostly just black and white. White people were like 80% of the population. Black people were more like 11, 12%. We're now 13.5%. We haven't grown much. Abortion has played a major role in that. Women's rights, well, I guess you can say the women's liberation movement, sexual revolution, birth control, like I said, abortion, women wanting to have careers, all that crap. And that actually hurts our societies. When women stop having children, it hurts the birth rate. And the number is supposed to be 2.1 children per woman to actually be at replacement level. So none of these Western nations, America, Australia, the UK, France, Germany, are at replacement level with just the native population. So the corporations and the businesses that have a lot of influence in these countries, and when it comes to their governments and policy, they're like, hey, we're not going to be able to sustain these businesses. We're not going to be able to sustain our way of life if we're not having children. And then, like I said, cheap labor is also a big part of it, but it's a combination of both. And then if you're, a little bit more fringe in your beliefs, you also believe they're trying to dilute the white population so they can have a population that's more dependent on the government and easier to control, and set up this new world order, one world government, which is prophesied in the Bible. So that there may be some validity to that as well. But on the surface, the 2 primary reasons why you're having so many migrants flood these countries is because, number 1, you've seen two too low of a birth rate amongst the native populations, and you've also you got a situation where they can exploit these migrants for cheaper labor, and these corporations they don't care. They just want money. So, and we're a comfortable society. These are first world countries. We the people allow this to happen. We haven't held our government accountable enough to make them stop doing this, and we haven't made having families of a bigger size a priority. We haven't stressed the issue as a society to get the birth rates up, and we haven't made getting rid of abortion and clamping down on these radical feminist women's liberation movements. We haven't snuffed them movements out. We should have shut them down a long time ago, but because we allowed those movements to grow and fester, and we've given women a whole lot more agency to do what they want to do instead of doing what is needed to be done, we find ourselves in this position. But like I said, I'm going to keep this explanations brief because I'm already at 20 something minutes. So let's move on. Okay, number 6 says, if I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, I wonder if she's there because of her excellence or is she there because of affirmative action. Okay, now, in my opinion, that statement is not exactly racist, but it's inaccurate. And the reason why it's inaccurate is because affirmative action doesn't have anything to do with the lack of professionalism amongst some black females. And I got a video clip I'm going to show of a very rude, disrespectful, nasty attitude black woman that was working for Frontier. I believe she got fired. Some of y'all may have seen this clip. It did go viral either earlier this year or last year. I think it might have been last year, but it was a white man in Raleigh, North Carolina at their airport, and he was trying to board a flight, but she was saying something about checking in, and I'm going to let you play I'm going to play the clip real quick, and I'll get back to Charlie Kirk's statement.
They made their flight. You did. And you think you're going to check me in. I bet you we won't.
Hey? I paid for a ticket.
And you didn't pay $25 for agent assistant, and you checked in 3 hours later. Hello.
I just said that I.
Get on your flight.
Yeah, I just said that I would pay the $25.
And you thought you was gonna get on your flight. And you thought you was gonna get on your flight. And you thought you was gonna get on your flight. And you thought you was gonna get on your flight.
I literally paid for a ticket. I'm here 30 minutes. I'm here 30 minutes before my flight, and they're not letting me check in.
And you're not getting on your flight.
Because it's a policy. We don't control that.
And you will never fly.
You were about to let me check in. You were about to let me check in, and you decided that you ain't gonna let me check in.
Make me check you in.
You literally work for a company that I bought a plane ticket for. I'm here 30 minutes before the flight.
Can you please leave, sir?
No.
Can you please leave my personal space?
I'm not in your personal space. This is not your personal space. This is
my stationery.
This is not your personal space.
Okay, so that was a big chunk of the clip that went viral. I think it was last year when that happened, if I'm not mistaken. But irrespective of when it happens, that's a prime example of what we're talking about with crazy, nasty attitude black women. And I'm not here to demonize black women. That's not what this video is about. But he brought up moronic behaving black women and said something about affirmative action. Like I said, that's not true. I don't believe that these women are there because of affirmative action. The reason why a lot of black women take these jobs where you experience, nasty attitude black women in these customer service positions is because, number one, they're low paying jobs usually. And number two, they're low skilled jobs. And these type of jobs they attract, low skilled individuals and people who come from not so great backgrounds. And, they got to hire who's in the potential pool of employees. And they unfortunately get some of the worst people within the black community to do these jobs. I'm from Georgia. We have a lot of black people here, and I've experienced very piss poor customer service from ghetto black women, and they get on my nerves. I can't stand them. And I will literally travel to different sides of town to eat at certain restaurants and go to certain businesses. Same business, but on the north side. If you know Atlanta, our north side is a lot wealthier and a lot more affluent. And it's not even a race thing, because I may go to a restaurant on the north side that's got a lot of black employees, and the customer service is better on the north side than on the south side, which has also a lot of black employees. But the black employees in the north are more courteous, they're more respectful, they're more professional than on the south side, because the south side is virtually all black, depending on what county you're in. And black people, we don't demand quality customer service as a collective. We just take what we get, and it's not supposed to be that way. All black women don't behave like this. We know that, but it's too many that do. And like I said, that statement wasn't racist. It was actually just an inaccurate statement. This has nothing to do with affirmative action. These women, these ghetto black women, get hired into these jobs because they're not very well educated women. They're like I said, low skilled, very very minimal skill required to do these jobs. You literally check people in at a counter, and you literally answer phone calls and ask. You answer phone calls and point your customer into the direction they need to go, whether it's paying a bill. They had a problem with their bill. They need, you to do a task to help them out with whatever they need. So not an affirmative action, not an affirmative action issue. It's more of a character issue amongst these ghetto black women who, unfortunately, everybody has to deal with, including black people. Okay, so number 7. I'm gonna go over it real quick because it's another, false statement he made. Leaders won't do what is necessary, which is arresting black criminals. That's totally not true. The issue is, when it comes to black criminality, it's not that the police aren't arresting them. They are getting arrested. The problem is the prosecutors. The problem is the district attorneys are not seeking strong enough sentences for these criminals, especially when they commit violent felonies. You have a lot of people who commit felonies in these urban communities, in your Atlantas of the world, your Philadelphias of the world, your St. Louis's, your Houston, Dallas. Like the situation in Charlotte, North Carolina, where the girl got stabbed in the neck and died on the train. That black man had been arrested 14 times. It's not an arrest issue. It's a prosecution and sentencing issue. They not supposed to be out on the streets if they got that many felonies on their record. And that leads me down to number 8 and 9, which are 8, 9, and 10. They all kind of run together. So I'll kind of try to condense these into a brief, explanation. So like I said, number 7 is inaccurate because arresting the black criminals is not the issue. It's prosecuting them and sentencing them when they commit very, very serious crimes. Number 8, black crime is a major issue in our country. That is true. We do have a major problem with crime in the black community. And it impacts not just black people, it impacts whites, it impacts Asians, it impacts Hispanics. Black criminality is an issue, and everybody knows it. Even the most hardcore black liberal knows it. They just don't want to admit it. So according to the FBI, they published this thing called a UCR. It's called Uniform Crime Reports. All jurisdictions in America that tabulate their crime totals from homicide to aggravated assault, robbery, etc. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, this is 12.2% of the population we make up. I think that's adult population, but we're 13.5 to 14% of the population according to the Census Bureau, but we make up 26.6% of total arrests, 51.2% of murder arrests, 52.7% of robbery arrests, 28.8% of burglary arrests, 28.6% of motor vehicle theft arrests, 42.2% of prostitution, and 26.1% of drug arrests. Those numbers are way outside of our overall share of the population. So we're disproportionately getting arrested for these crimes. Now, here's the thing about the FBI crime reports. They compile the data for actual arrest, but not actually convictions. So some of these black people that are getting arrested aren't necessarily convicted. So these numbers may be a little bit elevated, but the fact that we're making up this percentage of the arrest is still an issue. And we can get into why we're getting arrested at the rate we're getting arrested. We can get into what's causing the black criminality. That's another video for another day. And I will go over some of that on these next couple of points because he did say these couple of things. So black criminality in America, it is a problem, and it is a problem that needs to be addressed head on. And that was not a racist statement. That was actually accurate. I haven't given him very many accurate awards so far, but this is another accurate claim that he made. All right, so we just went over number 7 and number 8, which number 7 was inaccurate and number 8 was accurate. Number 9, what is the real problem exactly? The real problem is that black fathers abandon the women they impregnate. That also is true. It's a little bit more nuanced to that because there are a lot of black men that have kids that may not be married to the black women they have kids with, and they're involved in their children's lives. But there are a lot of black men that do have kids and they don't do nothing for their kids. And you can blame the man or you can blame the woman because the woman chooses to lay down with these deadbeat, degenerate males. But it's not really a whole lot to say behind that one because you do have what I call an irresponsible breeding problem in the black community. There's too much casual sex going on, and there's too much pregnancy happening amongst black men and black women that don't really have any business having kids together. But that's a fairly accurate statement. And if a black person said it, you wouldn't be able to deny the claim. You would just call him an Uncle Tom or a coon. But it is accurate that we have too many black people having babies that don't ever plan on getting married, and it's just casual sex relating in pregnancy. We have a promiscuity problem. We've abandoned our godly values, and we're doing what we think we want to do, and it's causing chaos. Number 10, the problem is blacks kill themselves a lot, kill each other in inner cities. That's a very, very accurate statement. There's no reason for us to make up 13.5% of the population, but over 50% of homicides and homicide deaths. That is true, 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 true. It is not a lie. There's nothing else to be said. It's a fact. That is not racist. That is a fact. And number 11 kind of, relates to the other ones we just went over. Black crime is a huge problem no one wants to talk about. It's not racism. Once again, he's correct. We are overrepresented in the criminal justice system. We do commit too many crimes in the black community. It's just what it is. And as a black conservative, we don't run from these statistics. We accept them and we want to do something about it. So I'm at the point where I'm tired of talking about it. I'm ready to see something happen. But let's move along because it's already 30 minutes into the video. Number 12, Black Lives Matter wants to fan the flames of a race war in our country. This is an outright threat of full frontal domestic terrorism in our country. Black Lives Matter, in my opinion, was not trying to fan the flames of a race war. It was a money grab. That's an inaccurate statement. I don't believe that no black Americans truly want to see us go into a race war. The BLM movement was founded by 3 lesbian women that got filthy rich off the movement. And the whole Black Lives Matter situation was a scam. I mean, it was basically it was something that they came up with, and they profited off the deaths of black men that were killed by police. I think this started around the time when Michael Brown was killed by the police officer up there in the St. Louis area. And yeah, these are like I said, 3 lesbian women. One of them bought a mansion off of a road called Topanga Canyon in Southern California. I've been to Southern California, and the northern and western parts of Los Angeles County is where the wealthy live, towards the ocean and up in the hills. And yeah, these areas are like 1% black or less. So if you love black people so much, why are you buying homes up there with the white folks if the white man is so bad? These women said they wanted to disrupt the nuclear family. Like I said, we make up 13.5% of the population, but 53% of the homicides. That's just, it's ridiculous. And if you truly cared about, if you truly cared about black lives, you would care about the black lives that are taken by black people, which is infinitely more than the amount of black people that's killed by the police. Number 14, the alleged Waukesha attacker was a black supremacist terrorist. Now, I don't have any evidence that he identified as a black supremacist, but he definitely was a domestic terrorist because of what he did. He drove his SUV into a crowd at a parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and I think he took the lives of at least 5 people. I believe the number was 5. I'm not 100% sure, but several white people did die in that attack. He did get life in prison, and this is a picture of him in his jumpsuit when he was, in court, of course. And I believe that he may have been affiliated with Black Lives Matter, but he did put out a lot of posts on social media comparing the police department to the KKK. He was pro-Hitler, and I think he also did not like Jewish people. So I don't know a whole lot about this guy, but I guess you could say Charlie Kirk was correct on this particular post, because he did have some anti-white posts on his social media, and he did call for violence against white people. So I would give Charlie Kirk a check mark on this actual claim that Mr. Darrell Brooks was a black supremacist terrorist, because he actually acted out what he felt and took the lives of 5 innocent white people at a parade. Okay, so numbers 15 and 16 are kind of coterminous. They kind of run together. Number 15 says that Juneteenth threatens the fabric of our country. And number 16 says Juneteenth should not be a federal holiday. Now, as far as it threatening the fabric of our country, that's an absolute fallacy. That's totally false. It does nothing to hurt our country at all. So that's a lie. That's not true. And then his next one, the 16th one, says it should not be a federal holiday. That's entirely subjective. That's his opinion. I don't really care. I'm indifferent to Juneteenth. I don't celebrate Juneteenth. It doesn't bother me one way or another. I really don't even celebrate the 4th of July anymore. Not that I don't like the 4th of July anymore. It's just that I'm older now. I don't really have to go shoot fireworks like I used to. Will I take the day off and then go have barbecue with family and friends if I'm invited somewhere or somebody want me to cook? Sure. I like to eat. I like to barbecue. I like to fellowship with family and friends. You know, be on the grill, cold beer, you know what I'm saying? Somebody want to shoot some fireworks, whatever. But I've never been to a Juneteenth event. Not saying I wouldn't go to one. I mean, I don't have a problem going to an event that somebody invites me to, but this was something that happened up under Joe Biden. It was a symbolic move. It did not help the black community. It did not hurt the black community. It's really a moot point. It didn't really do anything to disrupt the fabric of our nation, as Charlie Kirk, claimed that it would. So it's a lot of holidays that we have that you could say we don't need, or they don't really do anything, like Columbus Day. Do we really need Columbus Day? Right? Do we really need, Veterans Day? Even though I respect veterans, like it's a lot of days that are holidays that we don't necessarily need, and that don't really have any weight. They don't carry any weight for our society, right? Martin Luther King Day, right? President's Day, right? We got a lot of days that federal workers get paid. And Juneteenth is one of those holidays where federal agencies may be closed, banks may be closed, but the overwhelming majority of private businesses are going to remain open. Walmart's open, Applebee's is open, Target is open, Home Depot is open, etc., etc. Starbucks coffee is open, right? You can pretty much do anything you want to do on Juneteenth, except go to the bank or get your mail delivered or something like that, right? So government agencies may be closed on these federal holidays. Joe Biden made it a federal holiday, cool, whatever, but it does absolutely nothing to disrupt the fabric of our nation. So 15 is false. 16, that's subjective. That's an opinion. I'm not going to say it's accurate. I'm just going to say that's his opinion. And as far as either one of them being racist, no, neither one of those are racist. Those are just opinions. All right, so we're almost done. Number 17, we should not be like, you're acting like a Trayvon, you're a Shaniqua. That one I'm going to just leave as inconclusive. I don't even know if that's the full statement he made. That I can't gather any real context behind that statement. It just seems to be like it's bits and pieces of a bigger statement. So let's just scratch that one. I mean, Charlie Kirk has said so many things over the years, and I don't even know where to begin to find the actual full clip of that. So we'll just leave that one as inconclusive because we don't have enough information. Number 18, about Yusef Salam of the Central Park 5. He once took part in the gruesome gang RAPE of a jogger in Central Park after getting away with gang RAPE. That is 100% false. And the reason why it's 100% false is because the Central Park 5 were all acquitted, and another guy, I think a Hispanic guy, claimed responsibility for the attack. So that's actually 100% false. It's not racist. It's just false. It's just not an accurate statement. Number 19, affirmative action does not address the real problem. Black crime, black fathers abandoning their children. Black crime is a huge problem no one wants to talk about. I don't have enough context to really break that one down like I want, but I guess I can kind of comment on it and see if I can bring it together. He says affirmative action does not address the real problem, excuse me, which is black fathers abandoning their children. I don't think affirmative action has anything to do with, the breakdown of the black family and the black criminality. Affirmative action is basically, hiring people and giving people opportunities, because of their perceived minority status versus, them being qualified. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that has anything to do with those two, items are not related in my opinion. I just don't believe those are related. So again, I'm going to say that doesn't make sense, or either that's not the full clip of what he said. There may be more to that one, so I'm going to probably rule that as inconclusive, like the last statement about the Shaniqua and Trayvon thing, what he was talking about. Like I said, somebody put this on X, and I wanted to just go through it because I thought it was quite fascinating because of all the claims of Charlie Kirk being racist. So we'll leave that one alone as well, because I'm pretty sure there was more to that one than what this person posted on X. And this is the last and final one. Okay, so this statement was made by Charlie Kirk that said more than 600 white women a year are murdered by black men. That is 100% not racist, because it's a statistic. Now, me personally, I have not read that statistic. It may be true, it may not be true, but I can say that's not racist. Facts aren't racist if that is indeed a fact. Here's what I do know about interracial crime data in America. It is way more interracial violence going one way than the other way. Black people do harm white people at a higher rate than white people harm black people. That is a fact. On a micro level, at least. Now, when you talk about macro level, then we might be able to talk about that in a different, context, because on a macro level, I think white people hurt the country as a whole because they're the majority race. And then we talk about policy and, deaths that are caused by big pharma and the COVID shot and, sending our soldiers to die in Iraq and Vietnam and all these wars. Yes, white people do take the cake with that. But on a micro level, when it just comes to everyday interracial crime data, yes, it is true that black people do commit more crimes against white people than white people commit crimes against black people. That is an incontrovertible fact. You can look it up on the FBI crime report. Like I said, I do not know if the 600 number is accurate. I do know that more white people are killed by black people per year than black people are killed by white people per year, at least on a micro level, like I said. And then you could even argue that the first claim I made about on a macro scale when it comes to, stuff that the government does to hurt society it's not even racially based. It's everybody can get it when it comes to the government. The government hurts all of us, but we're talking about just these claims that Charlie Kirk made, and I like I said, that statistic may very well be true, but I haven't been able to find the actual numbers of white people that are murdered per year by black people. But I did find out that white people are victims of violent crime at a higher rate from blacks to whites versus whites to blacks. That is true. Okay, so that right there is the conclusion of my video of the 20 so-called racist claims that were made by Charlie Kirk throughout his, career. In my opinion, Charlie Kirk was not a racist. He did say some things that were kind of controversial, and they kind of got people in their feelings, but facts are not racist, and opinions are just what they are, opinions. But out of that list of those 20 different things that he said, if you just listen to the more tail end of some of those statements and not listen to the entirety of the clip, then it could seem racist, because again, we know how we live. We live in the social media. clickbait viral world where everybody, is just trying to cut out clips of the most sensational part of the conversation. And that's the part that goes viral. That's the part that gets the most clicks. That's the part that people are like, oh, that was so wrong. That was so racist, whatever. When in reality, if you just listen to these statements in their entirety, you can gather whether or not he was being racist. So again, I don't believe he was a racist. He's done a lot to put black people on that are part of the black conservative movement. And it's a lot of black people that he helped way beyond Candace Owens. And to be honest with you, I don't even think he really helped Candace Owens. They're kind of their own individual brands. Like Candace Owens is huge. Charlie Kirk was huge. But Charlie Kirk's movement was of course much bigger than what Candace Owens has done. Candace Owens don't really have a movement. She just has a big platform. Charlie Kirk had an actual movement. And he actually inspired and helped black people. That's a fact. You can look it up. Plenty of black people got a lot of positive energy towards Charlie Kirk that knew him. And that's not me caping for Charlie Kirk. That's just reality. So hope y'all enjoyed the video. I know it was a lot longer than what I wanted it to be, but I tried to break down each one of those statements as accurately and factually as possible, without any bias. And I tried to bring as many receipts as possible. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Y'all like, y'all share, y'all subscribe. Peace.